Welcome back to Tarot by the Bay. I'm David. Okay, so here's an interesting one for you. Both Michigan and Minnesota, the challenges to getting Trump taken off the ballot have failed. And Colorado just ruled on this as well. But this is kind of an interesting one. They will not remove him from the ballot, but they basically said, yeah, he's an insurrectionist. So how to take this? Reading this, if you just read the headline, you might be upset. Saying, what the heck? Why not? But here in the article, I've got the CNN article here. Here's how it explains it. The provision explicitly bans insurrectionists from serving as U.S. senators, representatives, and even presidential electors, but it does not say presidents. It says it covers any office, civil or military, under the United States, but that does not include the office of the presidency, as the judge ruled. Okay. The other part in her ruling, she goes, the court, let's see. The court finds that the petitioners have established that Trump engaged in an insurrection on January 6, 2021 through incitement, and that the First Amendment does not protect Trump's speech. Such incendiary rhetoric issued by a speaker who routinely embraced political violence and had inflamed the anger of his supporters leading up to the certification was likely to incite imminent lawlessness and disorder. So there you have it. Any of these trials, regardless of how they were going to rule, is going to end up in the Supreme Court. The Democrats or whoever is saying that Trump should be taken off, they could win in those 3 states. They could win in those state appeal courts. They could win in those states' Supreme Courts. And then it would go to the Supreme Court. And then the Supreme Court gets to decide if it's applicable or not. Same thing if they lose. They can lose in the courts. They can lose in the appeal court. They can lose in the state Supreme Court. It's going to go to the Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court will decide. So I think when I've read on this, I thought they would be successful in removing him from the ballot, but then it would be stayed by the Supreme Court, and ultimately they would rule on it after the election. If the Supreme Court agrees with this judge in Colorado's ruling, expect that there might be an amendment to include the president's office in the Insurrection Act, the 14th Amendment, Section 3. And it would be really interesting to watch who would vote against that. Because at that point, if Trump doesn't win, he's politically dead in the water. And so the Republicans shouldn't have to worry about it anymore, right? Until the next Republican tries to cause an insurrection. But let's read on the energy of this ruling, and then let's see how its future is looking. Entertainment purposes only. Okay, so what's the energy going on with this ruling that Trump was an insurrectionist, but the 14th Amendment, Section 3, doesn't prevent him from running for the office of presidency? There's my insurrection card. There's your insurrection right there. I'm an insurrectionist. Hi, my name's Donald the Insurrectionist. Crossed with the mystery, the moon card. Part of this is that I guess only 2 people have been removed using this act since like the 1900s. And it's not written clear enough. The verbiage on it is murky. And to be really honest, the folks that wrote it probably never dreamed that there would be an opportunity for the people in the United States to vote into the office of presidency somebody who's been an insurrectionist against the government of the United States. It just, I'm sure that would be like, duh, we don't need to write that. Who would be so stupid as to do something like that? Well, welcome to the wonderful world of stupid that we live in these days. And yes, I said the S word. In the past, we got the Knight of Cups. To me, and I really should look at the Knight of Cups as a more positive card than I do, but it's hard to in these instances. This is the insincerity of Trump and the Republican Party trying to even represent the insurrection as a walk in the park, a normal day in the White House or in Congress. You know, all these misrepresentations, all these fake arguments, basically, that, you know, Trump's lawyers saying that it's an absurd conspiracy theory meant to block him from the office. That's what this is. You know, just everything is a conspiracy theory. Everything's a witch hunt. We shouldn't even have to rule on this, but apparently we have to. Current situation is Ace of Swords. The folks bringing these lawsuits are not giving up. Not by a long shot. They're not going to give up because Trump's lawyers would never give up. This is going to go to the Supreme Court. It just is. It's going to go through a bunch of court challenges, and we might win some, we might lose some, but none of those battles matter until we get to the Supreme Court. Yeah, it's a journey. This is a journey. This is a process, and we're at the beginning of this process. We've gotten through state courts, and we're now getting ready to go to the wonderful world of the appellate court system. There's an interesting one. Lesson to be learned from all this is the Ace of Pentacles. Money. Money and power. This is about money and power. Certainly Trump wants to stay in office because it will benefit him. But ultimately, the backers of the GOP do not want this case to go forward because they become the American oligarchy. They become the lords of the land, and they rule, which is why, you know, the little guy, us, needs to keep fighting this all the way through to prevent the United States from basically becoming an oligarchy. I think it already is an oligarchy to some point, but it being cemented in place. Outcome. It's Nine of Pentacles. View this as your Supreme Courts and your future courts coming up. I'm only saying that because we have the 9 and we have the coins, and there's 9 justices on the Supreme Court, and they're going to be the ones ruling on this. Will they be ruling in the best interest of the United States? That remains to be seen. Underneath all, we have the Magician. It's the manifestation or the illusion with this. It's kind of both. But I think with this reading, it's really the manifestation of trying to create change in our elections and our electoral process. Because ultimately what this is it's an amendment to the 14th Amendment, or some clarification of the 14th Amendment. I don't know if it ends up being an additional amendment in the Constitution, but it's going to bring the 14th Amendment and bring clarity as to what it means or doesn't mean. And I don't know if you can amend an amendment. My civics, I failed my civics classes. They're a really long time ago, and I don't think anybody ever asked if they did ask. Okay. What happens when this goes to the Supreme Court? Because it's going to go to the Supreme Court. It just is. It's the current energy or thoughts in the Supreme Court about this. Because they know this is coming. you know they know this is coming. It's just, how quickly will it get there? Card wants to stay on top. Who am I to say no to something that wants to be where it wants to be? What's the Supreme Court? Election interference. Oh, insurrection. Here we go again on the top. I was going to do a 4-carder, so let's stick with that plan. It's going to get there. It will get to the Supreme Court. It'll get there quickly. Are the folks on the Supreme Court crazy? Stealing the election? MAGA? Good Lord. The Supreme Court, if I were to look at this, with all these cards, we've got the insurrection right here. We've got the MAGA base. We've got the craziness, the lies, and everything along those lines. this is, well, I was saying this will get to the court, but I think this is the insurrection over here to steal the election. Okay. Yeah, this is what this basically, this doesn't really tell me what the Supreme Court's going to do, but this summarizes what they have to look at. If I were to look at those cards right now, I would say the Supreme Court's going to not change the 14th Amendment and let them run. That's just what I would see, because all these cards summarize MAGA ideals. Did I look at the bottom card? Yeah, Page of Cups. So, but in the end, again, if I was going to force myself to read the interpretation, that's what I would read it. But I don't think that's what it's saying. I think that's just, it's taking all my who's who of MAGA cards and insurrectionists and putting it in a 4-card spread. How about this? Will the Supreme Court rule on this after the 2024 election? That's kind of how I see it. I just think that they're not going to rule on it at the last minute here. Will the Supreme Court rule on this after? No. How will? No, forget it. I want to know. How will the Supreme Court rule on this? You know, how are they going to rule? I think it'll happen after the election. Do I want to ask that? Of course I want to ask that. How are they going to rule on this? Knight of Wands. Okay, so step by step, taking the process through. This is not a fast card. 8 of Coins, doing the work, evaluating things. The Chariot, it's going forward, but it's just, these are slow cards. These are not fast cards. And coming to an agreement. Well, that's nice. About the theft. Yeah, I think they will go forward with it. These cards are all about motion. This is the plan that they have. They're going to go forward with it. They're going to put in the work, do a lot of work on this one, because this is a big issue to discuss and it needs a lot of work. And it looks like they're going to come to an agreement with this. But underneath it all is this guy trying to get away with something. So I think they will rule on it. And it will happen after again, I still think it's going to happen after the election, which is why you've got that 7 of Swords underneath there, because he could have gotten away with it if it weren't for you meddling kids. Joy. Anything else more to throw on that? No, I think I'm done. Okay. Anyways, thank you everyone for supporting my channel. I appreciate it. Thank you for all the things you do to feed the YouTube algorithm, like likes and shares and comments. And that helps this video get out to new viewers. To those new viewers, I hope you enjoyed this reading. Hope you found it insightful. And I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.